Hey everybody! Before I begin my official commentary, I just want to say a few things. First off, I have a new logo for this show, Commentary Companions. Not only that, but I officially have a podcast. That's right, Commentary Companions is also a podcast. You can listen to the podcast while watching the movie simultaneously. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever available podcasts are available. I'll show you the link in the comments, along with the link to purchase the X-Men DVD in case you want to buy the DVD so you can listen to my commentary. Anyway, X-Men 2000 is currently available on these platforms that I'm showing right here. Me, on the other hand, I'm going to be watching X-Men while on a DVD. This is a much older DVD that was released to tie in with X-Men The Last Stand. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch the first X-Men film while on DVD. So, to all my fans and subscribers, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Commentary Companions. I'm your host, Tony Garcia, and today I'll be doing an audio commentary for the first ever X-Men movie, released in 2000. Now, X-Men has a very interesting history in both Marvel and in Hollywood as well. Before X-Men officially was released in theaters in 2000, they were in development hell, and it was released during a very difficult period for Marvel, as I mentioned. And they actually, before Fox bought the rights to the X-Men franchise, Marvel actually attempted to give the rights to X-Men to Columbia Pictures. However, Columbia wasn't interested in purchasing the rights. Fox was quite impressed with how the X-Men animated series turned out when it aired on Fox Kids, and so it resulted in, well, Fox purchasing the rights to the X-Men franchise. Now, other directors that were considered to direct the X-Men film were, well, directors such as Brett Ratner, Robert Rodriguez, and Paul W.S. Anderson. And it's kind of ironic that, well, Brett Ratner was considered to direct the first X-Men film because, well, he would also later direct, well, X-Men 3, The Last Stand. Also, yeah, let me just point out how very serious the Holocaust really was. It's definitely nothing to make light of. I didn't realize that this was, about Magneto until, we saw his powers just emerge, if that makes sense. And by all accounts, Eric here is 11 years old. Yep, by all accounts, Magneto is practically one of the most tragic Marvel villains out there. He's probably the most morally gray of them, alongside J. Jonah Jameson, at least in my opinion. I mean, but Magneto is definitely the most tragic. First having to endure persecution for being Jewish, and then having to endure persecution for being a mutant. He's a complex villain. The not-too-distant future. Far out, man. I sometimes forget that technically Anna Paquin is an Oscar winning actress, and she's also the youngest actress at the time to ever be an Oscar winner, having won her first Oscar at 11 years old. That's quite impressive. And I didn't even know that she was from New Zealand. I mean, I guess the southern accent isn't really terrible, but I'll admit, I kind of prefer Lenore Zan as the voice of Rogue. I'm really trying my hardest to not compare the live action film to the 1992 X Men series, because I've recently become a bit of a fan of the cartoon for obvious reasons. Terrible way to discover your mutant powers. In the comics, Rogue didn't really have an official name, but, as retcons kept happening, well, she started getting the name Anna Marie, but never an official surname. When I was a kid, I was never really familiar with Famke Janssen. And, well, I think, like a lot of people my age, the X Men films were my first introduction to it was my first introduction to Famke Janssen and other actors like James Marsden. Senator Robert Kelly made his comic book debut in Uncanny X Men number 135, released in 1980. Senator Kelly actually plays a much bigger role in the X Men cartoon. At first, he was skeptical against the X Men, but after being saved by them, he eventually becomes an ally to them. I mean, he's a really cool character, in my opinion, because it's a great example of how a character can change for the better. You could compare this phobia against mutants to McCarthyism, in which Joseph McCarthy falsely outed people who were communists, even people who pissed him off. It was very bad. And McCarthyism was no better than pretty much bullying, if you want my opinion. But this film was also my introduction to actors like Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen. I will always imagine them as Professor X and Magneto. Always. There's sort of an irony to the fact that Ian McKellen plays a Holocaust survivor. Let me explain. You see, X Men isn't the first time that McKellen collaborated with director Bryan Singer. The first time he collaborated with Singer was for the 1996 movie Apt Pupil, which is an adaptation of the Stephen King novella of the same name. And in the movie adaptation, Ian McKellen plays a Nazi war criminal known as known as Kurt DeSander. So there's an irony to the fact that he plays a Nazi war criminal in Apt Pupil and a Holocaust survivor in X-Men. Fun fact, the trucker in that scene is played by George Buza, who is also the voice of Beast in the original X-Men the Animated Series. And let me tell you something ironic. Originally, Beast was going to appear in the first X-Men film, but due to budget cuts and budget constraints, they were unable to feature Beast. And many of its aspects were featured in other characters, as I'll explain later. It's a shame. I guess they were going to portray Beast through CGI, and the budget wouldn't allow that. Real shame. Now, of course, the X-Men films were definitely also my introduction to Hugh Jackman. And this film pretty much made him a massive star. And of course, Hugh Jackman wasn't originally supposed to be the original choice for Wolverine. At one point during the late 80s and or early 90s, they wanted Bob Hoskins to play Wolverine and Angela Bassett as Storm. Other actors that were considered for the role of Wolverine, well, Russell Crowe was considered for the role, as was actor Dougray Scott, who's Scottish, I should point out. And he was going to play Wolverine, but he couldn't due to scheduling conflicts with starring in Mission Impossible 2. And allegedly, Tom Cruise wouldn't let him be in X-Men, so he could continue filming for X-Men. And I believe it was Russell Crowe who suggested to Jackman to try out for the role, especially since they're friends in real life, which makes sense. And I think it's a great decision on Crowe's end to make this suggestion. And yeah, I know that Wolverine is 5'3" in the comics, and that Hugh Jackman is 6'2", but Jackman makes this believable as the character, which is why it works so well. Yep, wrong answer. And this is one hell of a way to introduce Wolverine's powers. And it looks like a combination of CG and practical effects that I feel still holds up 25 years later, in my opinion at least. Holy stowaways, Batman! You can never go wrong with beef jerky. Or any kind of jerky, if you ask me. Fun fact, Rogue made her official comic book debut in Avengers Annual number 10, becoming kind of a temporary enemy of Ms. Marvel. But yeah, she pretty much didn't make her debut in an X-Men comic. Ditto Wolverine. A little too cozy. He just has a tolerance for pain. Plus, there's the fact that, skin's always regenerating. It's actually kind of a cute bond. Oof. Hey, she told you. I'm sure he's thinking, well, she did warn me. Also, yeah, this is one hell of a way to introduce Logan's healing powers in the film. Uh-oh. If you don't do something, Logan, she's gonna be toasty! And yeah, these effects that show his healing factor really do hold up, in my opinion. Hi, Stuck. I'm Logan. There ain't no lumberjacks in this kind of weather. Now, I did not know that Tyler Mane, who I kind of associate with Michael Myers in the Rob Zombie remake, was the first guy to play Sabretooth. And I guess I can share a fun fact about Sabretooth. He originally made his comic book debut in Iron Fist number 14. So, yeah, and he was he was a serial killer known as the Butcher. It wasn't until the 1980s when Sabretooth would become a definitive villain in the X-Men lore and would become Wolverine's definitive enemy. And Tyler Mane really does emulate the feralness of the character, to his credit. And so we have More X-Men, 19 minutes into the film. Now, I did not realize that this was the guy that played Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace. Toad made his official comic book debut in X-Men number 4, which was the introduction of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. He's none too happy. And Cerebro. Now, like I said, Beast was supposed to appear, but he couldn't due to budget constraints. And so, because Beast is an expert doctor and an expert in medical science, the filmmakers gave the Beast's medical expertise to Jean Grey. So, yeah, now you know. And of course, also fun fact, the one of the co-writers of the first X-Men film is David Hayter, who's also an actor. He voiced Captain America in the 1994 Spider-Man animated series, and he voiced King Shark on the Flash series on the CW. It still shocks me that this guy voiced two very separate characters and contributed to the screenplay to this. It's like, this dude has one hell of an interesting life. I tell you what. Now, X-Men was co-produced by Laura Schuler Donner, who was the wife of the late Richard Donner. And Laura Schuler Donner's production assistants was a young guy named Kevin Feige. And Kevin Feige was present during the casting of every actor. So he was there seeing Hugh Jackman get cast as Wolverine. And, well, Donner was so impressed with Kevin Feige's knowledge of the Marvel Universe that after X-Men, she made Kevin Feige the head of the then infantile Marvel Studios. So yeah, it's pretty cool knowing that a Donner helped with Kevin Feige's career. It really does leave an impact, if you know what I mean. I know a lot of people know Patrick Stewart best for playing Jean-Luc Picard on Star Trek The Next Generation, but I'll always know him best for playing Professor X. I'm just saying, he looks the part and he really plays it so well. And yeah, the lady in the yellow jacket is supposed to be Jubilee. And the lady in that blue shirt is supposed to be Kitty Pryde. the first of many actresses to play Kitty Pryde. The true leader of the X-Men. Alright, look. I love Wolverine just as much as everyone, but I really do feel bad for the way Cyclops was treated in the film. He should have been the main protagonist. He was done dirty, I tell you what. And it's pretty sad when the 1992 animated series does Cyclops justice more than these live action movies. But, I don't feel too bad for James Marsden because he found better things. I mean, he really does shine in comedic movies like Sonic the Hedgehog. He's really good. More like 20-ish. And there's Pyro. I still don't understand why, they couldn't have Gambit be Rogue's love interest due to their chemistry in the comics, but oh well. Well, that's cute. Roll credits. The X-Jet. Which is quite generous on his end. You could say that the X-Men, well, I'm not going to say you could say. The X-Men is an allegory for the civil rights movements and the bigotry that many people, such as black people, had to endure. And this is portrayed very well. with the xenophobia against mutants and such. I did not know the guy playing Senator Kelly was the original Willard from the 1970s horror film. That's an obscure one. Oof. That's cold. Henry, you're turning violet, Henry. Nah, that doesn't work. You know, this I did watch X-Men in theaters, but I was 3, so I don't really remember much, but I certainly remember Mystique's entrance. It's definitely easy to remember. One hell of a way to remember the character. Okay? Yeah, she was definitely also my introduction to Rebecca Romaine. I actually thought, I must confess, I actually thought that it was pronounced Romeigan, but nope, it's Romaine. Rebecca Romaine. Yeah, it's alliterative, too. Yeah, who knew that Toad was such a good pilot? Don't worry, I'll get back at you. Maybe in the third one. 200? Yeah, adamantium bullets to the head will do that to you. And you'd be right. Now, Mystique made her comic book debut in technically 2 comic books. She made a cameo appearance in Ms. Marvel number 16, but then she made her first full appearance as the character in Ms. Marvel number 18. Kind of a miss on that line. And you were none the wiser. Or alternatively, the Brotherhood of Evil. And still does. And yeah, it definitely takes a toll on him. Zap. Hmm. I like the door. Can you read my mind? Yep, give it a shot. What's the worst that could happen? What could possibly go wrong? It's complicated. It's not what it looks like. Oof. Who knew Logan was a guy that would talk in his sleep? Oops. Not a good way to wake up. That's definitely a cool effect seeing, Rogue's back heal. And sometimes your claws. It's happened. Trust me, Miss Marvel would know. And I mean Carol Danvers, of course. Derp. Slink. Yeah, mutant powers are definitely unpredictable when they emerge. You follow? Oh, dramatic much. He asked calmly. Yeah, I should have held on a little tighter. Creed. Oops. I'm just gonna pretend nothing happened. Now, I did not know at the time that Stan Lee made a cameo appearance in this film, in a very obscure cameo. Tommy is now scarred for life. And there's Stan Lee. It's so far Stan Lee, the co-creator of the X-Men comics, pretty much had 3 cameo appearances, and this cameo appearance is a non-speaking cameo appearance. So far, Deadpool is the only cameo appearance in the X-Men films in which Stan had a speaking role. I'm sorry, he made 4 cameo appearances in the X-Men film. Oof. Well, that's not nice. This is exactly why their relationship went nowhere. Jeez, Bobby's a dick. Cold as ice. I'm sorry, I had to make an ice pun. And here I thought Bobby's ice powers could freeze. Oh, that was Mystique. Which is ironic because, Mystique and Rogue have a very complicated relationship. Mystique has often been a maternal figure for Rogue in the past. which is Spanish for brain. Which kind of makes sense. I mean, yeah, for stuff like cerebral. Oops. A helmet, if you will. As did Beast, or should I say Hank. Yeah, I don't think I would last in Cerebro either. I like that all the humans are in black and white while all the mutants are in color. That's a nice little attention to detail. Yeah, Logan says, screw that. I guess that motorcycle must have gotten the same engine from the one in Men in Black. Yeah, Wolverine and motorcycles go hand in hand. I do agree that they did do Rogue dirty. I mean, yeah, Rogue's powers are tragic, but the comic book version of Rogue learned to overcome that and become a confident person. And it's portrayed very well in the animated series. I'm sorry that I'm comparing the live action movie to the animated series, but the animated series did the characters justice. That's how big of an impact it had. Not exactly a very conspicuous disguise. Now, the makeup process for Mystique took hours upon hours because it was many separate pieces, and it was a very unpleasant experience for Rebecca Romaine. The makeup was done by Gordon J. Smith, who also did the makeup for X2. Yeah, other makeup that he did was for films such as Born on the 4th of July and Natural Born Killers, both of which I believe were directed by Oliver Stone, if I remember correctly. Yes. So, Bryan Singer isn't the only director that Gordon J. Smith has collaborated with. He also did makeup for the RoboCop TV series, well, at least for one episode. But yeah, the last thing he did for makeup was for the TV series Fringe back in 2008. To this day, I have no idea what happened to Gordon J. Smith. He dropped off the map. I do find it interesting that Logan's relationship with Rogue is very comparable to his father-daughter relationship with characters like Kitty Pryde and Jubilee. And I guess you could say the movie version of Rogue is a substitute Jubilee. Well, that's actually a nice moment with Cyclops. Plus, we get to see him smile. Well, that's not nice. I gotta say, Tyler Mane really did emulate that sadism. But I'll kind of say who did it better in a certain commentary much later. Uh-oh. Hey, Victor, you've been thunderstruck. Thunderstruck. Ribbit. Uh-oh. Ouch. Could be worse. Magneto could literally rip the adamantium out of your flesh right now. Which he did. You got a train to catch. Ouch. I do believe two of the screenwriters of this film made cameo appearances as the police officers in this scene. Kind of cool. And of course, Joss Whedon also tried contributing to the script, but apparently only two pieces of dialogue from his script made it into the film. Bryan Singer was also offered the chance to direct Alien Resurrection, the fourth film, but, well, the folks at Fox felt that he was better suited for X-Men. Oh, that's right. You can't because of my helmet. Uh-oh. Damn. It's pretty brutal for a PG-13 movie. Oh. Oof. After all, you should see what I do with quarters. Now, the ideologies of Professor X and Magneto are very much inspired by the ideologies of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. It's quite noticeable in the comics if you stop and think about it. As it feels to almost have a bullet to the head. Now, Storm made her comic book debut in Giant Size X-Men #1. It's pretty much where she and Wolverine joined other certain X-Men characters into forming a brand new version of the X-Men to rescue the original founding members. And she was also co-created by Wolverine's co-creator, the late but great Len Wein. Yep, gotta be specific. I really do like how Patrick Stewart portrays Xavier as a gentle grandfather figure, and it really does shine through in the performance. Oh, yeah, in his mind, he can walk again. Oof, not as young as he once was. Ouch. I do believe that X Men was the first live action Marvel movie to receive a PG 13 rating. Howard the Duck got a PG rating, and Punisher 1987 and 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 the first Blade film were both rated R. Although, if we're going to be technical, I guess Men in Black is the first live action Marvel movie to receive a PG 13 rating, even though it's technically from Malibu Comics, which is also technically owned by Marvel. So, I guess technically Men in Black and X Men were the first two live action Marvel films to receive a PG 13 rating. Maybe I might do a commentary for Men in Black at some point. Maybe. You know, for a PG 13 movie, this is probably one of the scariest scenes ever, especially since it's not a horror movie, and it's also the most brutal death for a PG 13 movie. Out of context, this would make for a great horror film, a great body horror film, and this does a great job doing body horror in PG 13 territory. Which is kind of justified. Yeah, they were going to show his organs, but it felt too terrifying. Yikes. And the special effects hold up here, definitely. This is due to the fact that his body was unable to handle the mutation and pretty much rejected it. What was it Admiral Akbar once said? Oh, yeah. It's a trap! Man, he's got one hairy chest. Hopefully, I'll be alive to take care of them. Now, here's another interesting fact. Apparently, Bryan Singer wouldn't allow any of the actors to read any of the X-Men comics. However, Kevin Feige, who, remember, was the production assistant for this film, snuck in a few X-Men comics to let the actors read. Kevin Feige, you sneaky guy, you. Ugh. Talk about a bad way to end the shift. You know, if I had a nickel for every time a third act action sequence occurred in a Marvel movie, I would have two nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's strange that it's happened twice. First time's here, second time was in No Way Home if you stop and think about it. Because I think that's the only times I can think of in which a third act battle occurs at the Statue of Liberty, which I hope I can visit one day. You know, I'm so used to Mystique's design of her being in the nude that I sometimes forget that in the comics, she actually wears clothes. Ugh, I feel you, Eric. He's not wrong. It's an interesting motive for a movie villain. And if you think that's convoluted, trust me, Magneto's done much more convoluted. I mean, did you know that the human body has a lot of iron in the blood? Well, because Magneto is the master of magnetism, he literally used the iron in the blood of the Avengers to control them as his puppets. I kid you not, that actually did happen. It's messed up, I tell you. Well, that's a nice sweater, Storm. And it's pretty funny since over 20 years later, X Men 97 would retaliate with a pretty funny line with Cyclops saying, what were you expecting? Black leather? And I guess now I can address the elephant in the room. That is, the X Men's leather black costumes. I always found it jarring that in the comics and the cartoons, oh yeah, the X Men have these bright, colorful outfits that are memorable and designs like Wolverine really stand out, as does Cyclops. Those designs are iconic. They're timeless. And yet in the movies, it's colorless, it's black, it's just it and leather. Apparently, there's a reason as to why the X-Men wore black leather suits in the live-action movies. This was due to the success of The Matrix, released in 1999, and Fox wanted to capitalize on The Matrix's black leather getup, and so the X-Men were stuck in these pretty bland and tiring black leather outfits. I mean, I do like some of the details, like how there are some, they have some secondary colors that shine through, and I think Kitty Pryde really does look good in it, and I think one of the few the few characters that benefit from the black leather outfits, in my opinion, would have to be Storm and Jean Grey. And I guess I can talk about the costume designer who worked on it. The costume designer for the first X-Men film was Louise Mingenbach, and she's also a was also a frequent collaborator of Bryan Singer, to the point where she actually was the costume designer on Bryan Singer's directorial debut, The Usual Suspects. She collaborated with him on Apt Pupil, the first two live action X Men films, X Men Days of Future Past, School for Scoundrels, and she even collaborated with Singer on Superman Returns. Now, School for Scoundrels, of course, was not directed by Bryan Singer, but I'm just pointing that out. And she also did the costume designs for the Will Smith-led superhero action comedy Hancock, and she's also collaborated with Todd Phillips doing costume designs for the Hangover trilogy and Due Date. She also did costume designs for Battleship and G.I. Joe Retaliation. And she's also done costume designs for Godzilla, King of the Monsters, Jumanji The Next Level, and Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and even doing costume designs recently for the Star Wars TV show Skeleton Crew. Quite a colorful career, if you ask me. Pretty much the fancy way of saying, I got a bad feeling about this. Kissy kissy. Which one's which? Now, fun fact. This is kind of funny. Apparently, now the claws were done practically, and when Hugh Jackman was wearing them, he apparently during the filming of this, he accidentally stabbed one of the stunt women playing Mystique with the claws. He felt so bad. He wanted to apologize profusely, but then that stunt woman just ran up and started saying, "Oh my gosh, I got stabbed by Wolverine!" All giddy. It's pretty funny. Pardon me, I left my double-bladed lightsaber at home. You'll float too. Ugh, that is nasty. Ouch. Oof. That's gotta hurt. Boom. I guess now I can also talk about the music composer behind this. The first X-Men film was composed by Michael Kamen, and he had done many movies, and well, one of his other he did music for films like The Dead Zone, Highlander, The First Lethal Weapon, Adventures in Babysitting, and my personal favorite, well, the Iron Giant. He pretty much composed the music for all the Lethal Weapon films and Die Hard, but I associate him best for composing the music to The Iron Giant. It was also his first score for an animated movie. But yeah, he was also a frequent collaborator with Bryan Singer. His last score that he composed was First Daughter. But yeah, that was Michael Kamen. Rest in peace. Nope. Okay, I'm not sure which writer wrote that lightning line. Honestly, I'm gonna be real. I'm not sure which line is more lame: the wicked tongue line, or the toad gets struck by lightning line. I think I dislike the wicked tongue line more than this. Yeah, I said it. I'm not gonna take it back. Oh yeah, he knows he's being bullshitted. Bullshat. Yeah, did you really think you could fool me? Yeah, walk it off. That can't be good. Is that a comm link in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me, Scott? Oof. That's not fun. Uh-oh. Ha! Burn. Oh yeah, interpreters. No. Could be either Bush or Clinton. Of course, remember, X-Men was released during the 2000 presidential election. Oof, take one for the team. Surprise, Smelly! Yeah, this fight seems pretty cool. If I have only one complaint, it's that it's sadly too short for me. Okay, yeah, that's cool too. Careful there. You could have hit Scott or Jean. That would be bad. I should also point out in the comics, Jean has gone through many alternate identities, but her first identity when she was a founding member of the team was, well, literally called Marvel Girl. Imagine if in the movie she's called Marvel Woman. Yeah, it's a lot more speaking lines than I thought. Oh, yeah. Boom! And that's the last we see of Sabretooth. He's being blasted away! And to this day, we never knew what happened to Sabretooth after that. That's what I call working as a team. It's just a shame that Iceman, Angel, and Beast couldn't be with them, especially since, they're also one of the founding members of the X-Men. But, budget constraints and all that. Whoa. Oof. It's like, wait for it. Don't throw away your shot. Boom. And right in the nick of time. I guess I can also talk about the white streak in Rogue's hair, which is one of Rogue's signature looks in the comics. Apparently, when the creators were creating Rogue in the comics, I believe Chris Claremont wanted Rogue's appearance to be based on actress Grace Jones. The illustrator didn't know who she was, and so he created the white streak on the hair, and, well, it was a happy accident, but it pretty much worked for the character, and so it became part Rogue's signature look with the white hair and all that. It's what I associate with regarding Rogue. So yeah, this is the second time Logan had to give Rogue his healing powers, and it was, voluntary this time. But it still is a heroic gesture on Logan's part. Oof. It's interesting that parts of Logan's black leather suit have hints of orange and yellow, kind of like his signature suit. Although I do wonder what would have happened if he had to wear the mask. I wish he did, but that's just me. I definitely like the X on the collars. X's? X's, I think. Yeah, X's. Good way to fool everyone by being disguised as a wounded cop. It's actually a very smart escape plan. That's sweet. And so a denouement begins. Who knew Logan was ticklish? Uncanny. I wonder what kind of charming personality traits. Oh, looking a little yellow. Ah, interesting little detail. Not a bad line. Oh, that's nice. I doubt Scott will mind if I take his motorcycle again. I like the idea of Magneto having a non metal prison. It definitely works. It's a very smart idea. No way he could escape from that. Right? I really like that in the X Men films, this franchise pretty much produced a strong friendship between Stewart and McKellen. I really like that while they play enemies in this film, they're friends in real life, and I really do like that little subversion. It's nice to know that they're friends in real life. Kind of like how McAvoy and Fassbender are friends in real life too, but more about them when I get to the commentary for that later. Whew, chills. And it totally makes sense to have Xavier have the last word in this piece of 2000s movie. Checkmate, y'all. And that was X Men. This film may be a product of the 2000s, but damn, is it iconic, and it definitely demonstrated how characters like the X-Men can be taken seriously. Especially since, well, the X-Men has had a very tumultuous history back then. By the late 60s, early 70s, the X-Men were really starting to fade into obscurity. So much so, the best that they could do was re-releases of their classic comics. It wasn't until Giant Size X-Men that they got the much-needed comeback that they got and started becoming much more popular in the 70s and 80s and 90s, even during Marvel's more difficult times with bankruptcy. This film, alongside Blade, definitely demonstrated how Marvel characters can definitely work in live-action movies and how characters like the X-Men can be taken seriously and can be profitable. I do believe that X-Men definitely contributed to the idea of the Marvel Cinematic Universe being possible, along with another certain Marvel movie that I'll eventually get to in the next episode of Commentary Companions. But yeah, I have a total soft spot for these X-Men films. I can definitely say that they motivated me to read the comics and to watch the cartoon. Well, cartoon plurals, so cartoons. Yeah, I'm gonna say it. I do favor X-Men the Animated Series and X-Men 97 a lot more than I favor the Bryan Singer X-Men films. They are done much better. They're much more comic accurate in a way. Even when they have to, change certain things in order to, appeal to the censors and appeal to toy merchandising. But yeah, X-Men is definitely iconic, and I definitely love it. And, well, yeah, I'm glad that I pretty much. It feels great to do a commentary on this on the film's 25th anniversary that'll eventually come very soon. But yeah, that is my commentary of X-Men. Thanks for listening to it. Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't have a good day. Have a great day.